Get ready to rise above the noise and unlock your true potential. Welcome to Unapologetic Uplift, the podcast that's all about keeping it real and helping you live your best life.
I'm Kim Staples, and I'm thrilled to be joined by my beautiful co-host, Ianthe Mauro, on this journey of unapologetic growth and transformation.
Together, we share unfiltered thoughts, practical strategies, and advice on manifesting without the fluff, encouraging you to prioritize self-care physically, emotionally, and energetically so you can make things happen without making yourself sick.
In a world that often tells you to dim your light, we're here to help you shine brighter than ever and be seen in your best light. Join us as we dive into the art and science of living unapologetically and reaching your full potential.
Buckle up. Get ready to learn, grow, and evolve with us on Unapologetic Uplift. New episodes released weekly.
Welcome to Unapologetic Uplift. I'm your host, Kim Staples, joined by my co-host, Ianthe Mauro, and one of my favorite humans, Angel Phoenix. Welcome.
Hello, gorgeous number one and gorgeous number two, but both gorgeous number one in my eyes. Just going chronological for chronological sake. How are we?
Wonderful.
So good. And we start every episode by setting an intention on a candle. And I light a candle, and I was telling Kim today that before we started the recording that my mom created a matchbox for me that has my dad's photo on it. And my dad is with us lighting this intention, my dad, Joel. And I feel him a lot, and he's smiling, and he can't wait to meet you, Angel. That's what I'm getting.
That's so sweet.
So I'm lighting this candle, and the intention that I want to set today is that we are going to listen with an open heart.
And so it is.
Lovely. And so mote it be. Nice to meet you through the ether, Joel.
Angel, what does the world need to know about Angel Phoenix?
Oh my God, you guys are going hard and heavy in this already. What does the world need to know? I suspect that the thing the world needs to know is the same set of things that my good friends like you need already know, which is I feel like I'm coming out the other end of one of the biggest eras of self-discovery I've experienced since basically from when I had Ruby, so 10 years ago. I think that I am bridging this new era of self-awareness and finding new language to describe where I'm at in my heart and in my mind and what I'm using to decorate my world and position myself. I basically have not went on any other podcast by choice over the last while. Pornhub was actually the first one that I got on. And now this is the second one because I felt sort of mindful of what I say, but not wanting to share where I'm at beyond with the people closest to me. But this felt like a really safe space. So that's why I'm here. I think it's difficult sometimes when we are, an influencer or a public personality or like an online personality is people think that they know you and they're committed to this idea of you because of parasocial relationships and limerence and sort of they want you to stay the same. And when you're a really fluid human being and really dynamic in general, and you do move through huge things, I'm not just talking about a career change or financial loss or even grief. I'm talking about a full identity death and a full rebirth. Sometimes it can be triggering to have to try and explain yourself to people in a public setting. So I was excited to come here today and just be authentically myself in the theme of unapologetic. And I would like to kick it off by firstly saying, and I think I did leave a comment on the post, but how for me, being unapologetic, the definition of that has changed so beautifully and dramatically through every era of my life. If you'd like to kick off the conversation there, and how now unapologetic means I no longer make apologies to myself. Whereas prior, it was I no longer make apologies to others. So this season of my life is extending more grace and more compassion and more forgiveness to myself. And in that, ending the self-betrayal, ending the justification to self about how I've abandoned self, and really truly taking up full space within my body and no longer apologizing to myself for being myself. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I don't know if you'll notice, I like to look down sometimes because I'm writing something that just comes through, and I wrote down
I'm the same. It's
self-awareness,
okay.
new language, mid-process. And I also wrote, we're allowed to change our minds. I love that you brought that up. And the fact that when people make assumptions that they know who we are, I love that you brought that up too. And I'm excited because I'm getting to know you for the first time. And I feel like seeing you, online presence, seeing you, and now being present with you here in real time together, you're so beautifully real, and you
Thank
challenge.
you.
You're welcome. You challenge me to do the same thing you're doing. It makes me want to lean in and go, okay, how is she getting there? How is she able to own all the things she's been through, be through all of the changes, and exactly where she is right now? I love it so much. So thank you for that. And we have a question that we want
My
to ask.
pleasure.
Yeah, everyone, the
Oh, what's
question
the question?
you kind of answered already. It's like you went there. So I'm just going to ask it, which is, what is one thing you will never apologize for?
Authenticity. I think authenticity is something that costs the most, and therefore it might feel instinctual to want to apologize for it. Anytime we're taking up space, the good girl in us wants to say sorry. I'm very Canadian. So I basically, if I'm pushing a trolley in a grocery store, I'm going to apologize to everybody. I'm not bumping into them. I'm not hurting them. But my instinct is to say sorry just for existing. And I think that when it comes to authenticity, it's so easy to want to apologize for that, because it does piss people off, and it will ruffle feathers, and it will challenge people's preconceived notions about themselves and the world, etc., etc. So I don't want to apologize for just existing, which is to me authenticity.
Yes,
Exactly.
please.
Kim, I want to let you get into the conversation. I have a lot that
Sure.
I want to say. I could keep jumping in. So I'm handing it to you.
Okay, yes. Angel, you have lived many different lives. You've just gone through this massive rebirth again, and everything is changing for you. How do you pull this off in such a way that it looks easy?
I just tell you that my heart just swelled out of my mouth. That's how much I love you. I was just like, oh, I'm so proud of Kim. Look at her taking up space. It's so beautiful. Okay.
It's because of
Uh,
you.
no, I just love it so much. My heart just like swole with so much affection for you. First of all, that. Secondly, fucking LOL. Excuse my crassness. Whatever I am doing that makes you guys believe that I'm pulling it off where it's easy is hilarious to me. But here goes, I think, the skill of marketing and the finesse of the way that we show up in the world, so that we are teetering between professional and personal at all times. But we can chat about that later. Okay, so how do I always look? Was this your question? How do I look like I'm pulling it off, even though behind the scenes I'm not? Is that what you're asking?
Basically, yeah.
Okay. I want to preface this by saying we are all just figuring it out, right? And Yatha, you said like before mid process, and I clocked something in my mind, which is life is mid process. Like there is absolutely no beginning and no end. This entire thing is the mid process, just like it's the dress rehearsal and the final show at the same time. And I think the only difference between me and the rest of the world is that I am an emotional and energetic exhibitionist, meaning I heal myself by being wounded out loud. So my process is that the cathartic aspect of it, the somatic practice is for me to just verbalize. And whether that's because I'm a poet or I'm hyperverbal autistic or all these other things, it doesn't matter because my process is speaking about things out loud and that's how I move them. And I think that other people are inspired by that because it gives them permission or I'm a possibility agent. But in time over the years, I've realized that like I've always sort of carried around this guilt or this shame around how dynamic I am because, if you're a woman and you change your mind, it must mean you're flaky or you can't commit to one thing. And we've all, especially our mothers, have grown up in this infrastructure that looks like one husband, the kids, married forever, the mortgage, the picket fence, the one thing forever. And now we know that's not the case across the board, but within the last 10 years, we've been moving through the old and the new. Now we can understand that we're all going to have 40 careers before we die. But when you tried to bridge that conversation 10 years ago, people would look at you like you were the flimsiest human being alive. If you were not committing to relationships, if you were not compromising, if you were not being the good girl to hold the family together, you were absolutely shamed in the culture that I grew up in. Now, it's very much a part and parcel of where we are at in the fabric of society. So I think that people have been changing their mind as often as I have all the time. They do it every single day, but it's so entangled in shame and guilt and grief and the fear of how they're going to be perceived by others that they live vicariously through me living my shit show out loud. So if people want to watch me wade the diarrhea bath because they feel like being the voyeur to my experience and it resonates with them and it moves them and it helps them to see that they're very normal because we're all wading through our respective diarrhea baths, I'm down for it. But I will never, ever, ever tell people I have my shit together. And I make it a point to consistently say this, and Kim can attest to that, that I do not claim to have my shit together. That in fact, I don't trust anybody who tells me they have their shit together. And that for me, it's how loudly and boldly are you living your process out loud as it's unfolding as organically and authentically as humanly possible. And those are the people that I'm attracted to. I don't seek out mentors or coaches or teachers or leaders or, beacons of inspiration who look like they have all their ducks in a row. In fact, I run the opposite direction of those people. So, Kim, I know you and I have spoken in private, but like I have honestly thought so many times over the last year that I'm like, that's it, I'm done for. I'm a failure. I'm awful. The inner narrative was terrible. The inner critic was terrible. I allowed myself to take on the misunderstandings or misconceptions or projections of other people to a degree that I hadn't let people do in a very long time. I had to come to some pretty like cataclysmic realizations, and in doing that it fertilized the way for me to be more authentically myself, which I honestly thought was not going to be possible based on where I was and how I felt even just a few months ago. So if I do look like I figured it out, it's a lie, but I'm glad that I look trustworthy, if only the trust coming from, Angela, there's one thing you can expect from her is that she's telling the truth about where she's at and who she is at any given moment in time, and that's all I can offer people.
Oh gosh, yeah, you're so authentic. You are the leader in authenticity. And I just want to touch on when you're talking about changing our minds and how we live in this world where we're expected to commit to what we say we're going to do, and how you were the massive permission slip that I needed in being able to change my mind so many times on this heart-led journey that I'm on to living my purpose, because it has changed so many times. And in the past, I would have just stuck with the initial idea and believed that I
Yeah.
was a failure if I gave up on that or decided to go a different way. And it was having your mentorship and friendship
Love
that
you.
really allowed me to be able to do that. Like, I'm tearing up here and getting emotional because I have torn it down and built it back up so many times. And I know that there are people that are looking at me like, what the fuck is this girl doing?
No, they're saying, oh my goodness, how lucky am I to be privy to the evolution of someone discovering and rediscovering themselves and fine tuning. The fact that you get to quantum leap your self discovery in front of everyone, they should be paying for that shit. Like reality TV on an exclusive network. And if they are looking in and dispelling this weird commentary or judgment or whatever the hell it is, let them go cry with their tears and masturbate somewhere. Like this, these people have nothing to do with you. And I cannot emphasize this enough out loud. So many of us are not changing our minds because we are afraid of what other people will say or think. But it comes
Yes.
at a cost to us who become the victim of our own stagnation. And specifically, as women who are cyclical beings and are quite literally reconfiguring the makeup of their body and brain every month through every pregnancy, childbirth, child rearing, through loss, we teeter life and death. We are connected to the cosmos and then connected to the underworld. The idea that we are one thing throughout all of that plays into this idea that the martyr is the constant, that we have to tap into these archetypes that allow us to be predictable and reliable to everyone else but ourselves. Fuck that. So be who you need to be as it unfolds, because that person's going to serve you. If you don't change your mind, you're holding on to the version of you that keeps others happy.
Yes. And I did that for far too long.
Mm.
And being able to change my mind and just follow my heart and not give a fuck has changed my life. Changing my mind is everything. Every time I have done it, it has unlocked my next level of
Bingo.
happiness. And yeah, I can't even imagine. It's hard to believe there was a time that I just wouldn't do it because I was so terrified of what
Oh my
other
God, amen.
people were going to say or think. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you.
I
But
love you
same,
so much.
it's the reflection and the permission, right? Is this is the idea of like when you are create intimate relationships with people who reflect your values, you become more of who it is you are. And so there's an expansive potential there. Versus when we're hanging out around people that echo the opposite of what it is we truly long for, want, or desire, we end up contracting. And it really turns into this game of like friendship is truly just keeping the company of mirrors and reflective surfaces that take us home to ourselves and closer to ourselves. And we shouldn't be engaging in parasocial relationships or friendships or romantic relationships that make us feel or inspire us to feel guilty, shameful, etc., because those things will never, ever, ever serve the larger picture. And this is, and I've said this before as well, Yanti, that to me, really the one thing that I come back to over and over and over again, and I often try and find myself in titles and labels and stuff, is that I'm a change artist. All I know how to do is change. And that's where the sort of authenticity is the byproduct of that, because the authenticity fuels and drives said change. But to me, it's as simple as changing my underwear. And I remember my dad used to say things like, you change your mind as often as you change your underwear. Like there was always this negative connotation. And I realized over 30 years that the people who want you to be their predictable, poised, packaged pawn, who want to manipulate you, who actually benefit from you being static, they're the ones that are going to emotionally extort you into staying the same. And now I changed for me, and that becomes something that happens in service of others who also need to change their mind.
Whew. And I just keep getting these waves of everyone that's listening to this right now. You have the opportunity to be around people like this. You can
Yes.
make the choice to be around
Yes.
people like this where you can come home to yourself, where you're reminded that to be able to change, to be able to be in response to whatever's coming at you in that moment and be able to
Yeah.
deal with it and not be judged and not be held in some kind of prison of some conception of who you're supposed to be
Yes.
is freedom. And you have that with Kim, you have that with Angel, you have that with me. I
Yeah.
promise you that.
Yeah. 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 I mean, the company, I say this again, I sound like a broken record, but the company you keep either creates expansion or contraction. And I tell people this all the time. And I saw this happen in birth, childbirth, supporting childbirth over and over and over again, where a woman will literally, her labor will completely stall because she's in some sort of fight, freeze, fawn, flight response. And this is literally what happens. The contractions are more intense. She goes inwards. She starts fighting herself. And so you see the micro macrocosm of this happen every day in all of our lives, where the people around us scare us, intimidate us, overwhelm us, guilt us, ensnare us with shame. And whether it's in our families or society or workplace, they are continuously either inviting us into a bigger version of ourselves or dragging us down to the cesspool of where they need us to stay. And you get to choose.
Yeah, I think most of my life, I know most of my life, I was surrounded by females that brought me down and,
Same.
told me I was too much and not enough all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And it does make a complete world of difference when we're able to find our people. And you really can choose who your friends are,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
even when you think you can't. I look at my friendship with you, Angel. The moment I saw you, I just knew, and I've told you this so many times.
Please
And
don't make me cry today because you already got me on the verge twice.
and I, of course, was not on your radar at that time. You had so much going on. You were an influencer that had a zillion people obsessed with you. And I made it a mission. I'm like, I am going to get on this girl's radar. I don't care what it takes because I
Manifesting
know.
queen.
Yeah, I'm like, I know if she gets to know me, she's gonna love me and we're gonna connect.
Like it's that true, like in your heart as well. Even Danielle did the same thing. Like Danielle would show up to events I was speaking at or whatever, and like she was so patient in the back end while I worked with my stuff. And she's like, one day we're gonna be best friends. I'm like, okay, that is so sweet, but right now my brain feels like scrambled eggs on a windshield. So come back to me. And that's exactly what the most profound relationships in my life right now have been slow burns. And they have been the most stable and the most gratifying. And they've just happened to the exact or unfolded to the exact degree that I needed space to get rid of the people or purge the relationships that I should not have to actually make space for relationships that I very much needed and desired to have. And you said something before about us all having the opportunity to create relationships we want and need. This is what infuriates me. It's 2024. You have the internet. We have screens. We have connective tissue in the digital space. There's never been a better time to go out and find communities and people and content that takes you home to yourself. Like our ancestors had their village or their tribe or their church. They were not spoiled for options, if you know what I mean. So therefore, they were easily manipulated and easily pigeonholed and were forced to essentially take on whatever the world put on them to ensure security, a husband, whatever. There is no reason right now in this day and age for you to feel stuck and in contraction other than abuse and dysfunction. So if you are, and again, Kim's taught me this over and over again, like if you are a part of a dynamic that is toxic and you yourself are exhibiting toxic behaviors, you have to look at those things first and then clear the space to go out into the world and find the relationships that are going to serve you. But don't make the excuse that you don't have any friends and there's no one that, and that's just a bunch of bullshit. If you can't find people who, my friends are all over the world and we don't even see each other that often, but they're the exact humans that I need in a sea of 8 billion people to remind me I'm not crazy for being me. And if you are persistent enough, you can find those people. But if you choose to settle, that's on you.
Yes, take me for example. I never thought I would have friends like you and Ianthe.
Mm,
I didn't think I was worthy of that, but I did the work on myself. I became the
bingo.
person that you guys would want to be friends with.
Exactly.
And then
Exactly.
I set my eyes on the prize, and here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I just feel like female friendship is just so much more fulfilling than romantic. And because so many women are focused on finding romantic relationships, they just don't place enough importance on becoming the best person they can be for the women in their lives versus prepping themselves for their future husband. I think if women even diverted 1% of the energy they were placing towards romantic relationships onto themselves and the relationships they have with women, my God, the world would be a different place.
I just got that too. I was just seeing how I could see it's almost like these sparks that start and it just everything shifts. So the second, if
Uh-huh.
you're a woman listening right now and you can imagine Who is that friend that you can be listening to with an open heart, not judging, allowing them to change their mind? These are all things that they're going to give back to you, and how the change and the sparks that are going to fly from that and the possibilities that happen from that. I mean, I am so grateful because I have, there's a saying too that a friend of mine told me years ago. She said, there are good friends and there are old friends. And I want to offer that sometimes our old friends are not necessarily our good friends. And it doesn't mean that you have to say, you know, blow it all up and I'm never going to be their friend and I won't answer if they call, but just be aware, start to notice where are the good friends and what is the difference? I'd love to know what you think, Angel. What is the difference between a good friend and an old friend, if there is one to you, if that resonates? Or what is a good friend? What does it look like?
An old friend to me is a creature of comforts, a security blanket. An old friend is nostalgia. They offer a memory. They offer something warm. They offer, you know, a cup of tea in the cold. There's something that's not breakthrough about it, but there's something that reminds you of who you used to be a really long time ago. And assuming it's a healthy relationship, that's what an old friend is. Old friends don't necessarily invite me into being the best person I can be or realizing my potential, but they remind me of who I was when things were simpler. And that might be when I was traumatized, or it might be when I was childlike or whatever, but they have a very specific purpose. New friends to me is akin to like chosen family. It's the people that you go and seek out so they can make you feel like the new you. There's something there about like picking and choosing, curating the energy in your life, like really fortifying bonds that invite you into your potential. And then, of course, there's things like acquaintances, like people that you hang out with at the water cooler or that you see at your kids' soccer practice. Like these are people who are more so the cameos and the NPCs of your life. Like they're in the background and they might just be background noise, but they're still important to the whole picture. You know, they're layers in everything. And so I actually put a lot of importance on like my barista or my old neighbor with his two dogs that I see every single day when I go for a walk, or these sort of little characters that don't ask anything of me, but just have a sweet face to offer me in passing. And I think there's something really sweet and romantic about that. Relationships with no pressure, just sort of a high, like a breath mint, you know, there's something so lovely about them. And then I think that there is every other relationship, which to me is the codependency. It's the addictive, it's the can't move past it, it's the harming me more than it's, you know, feeding me. And most people are caught up in those relationships, whether it's familial or romantic or friendship, and they don't know how to tell the difference between relationships that are good for them and relationships that are bad for them, which I really do think is endemic to women navigating so many different things at once right now.
Oh, yeah. And I would love, and Kim, you're so great with this too, is what are some of the signs that a relationship isn't good for you? How do you notice? Because some people don't realize. I think they're going on thinking, I just have to do this much and be there and listen a little deeper and maybe try this. And it's not a good relationship for them.
Yeah, how would you articulate the contraction?
Well, the first thing I would say is, how does it make you feel?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Does this give you energy or is it draining your energy? Are you constantly trying to convince yourself that this is something that it's not? If you're trying to convince yourself that a relationship is good or that it's okay, it's not.
I love that. Talking yourself into
100%.
it. Yeah, that's the sign.
You're
My thing is, I
gaslighting
always ask
yourself.
myself, yeah, I always ask myself, like, is whether it's a second or a minute or an hour or a month, is this person energizing me or making me feel eaten alive? Are they feeding me or are they starving me? When we're really honest with ourselves, the answer is clear. Like, even this past relationship that I was in, I've never loved someone like that ever than I have in my entire life. But being around them made me question my reality, had me, you know, censoring myself, squashing myself, thinking I was absolutely insane. And at the end of the day, the thing that made me realize I needed to put an end to it was that I felt myself atrophying in their company. So instead of becoming more of who it is I wanted to be, I was becoming a shell of who it is I used to be. And when we're honest with ourselves, our body starts reacting. We start developing symptoms. We start physically, do you know what I mean? Reacting to this person. It starts to become a coping mechanism to be in your company versus a privilege to be next to you. And I remember I used to play this song all the time when we were apart, and it was "Can't Wait" from Doja Cat, and I just love the song so much. I encourage you to listen to it. But she really poetically described, like, when she's away from the person, all she thinks about is being around them and what she can bring to them and what they bring to her. And I think when it goes from "can't wait to be next to you" to "can't wait to be away from you," you realize, like, that person is not good for you.
Yeah, and you mentioned not being able to be yourself. If you
It's
can't be
it
yourself,
Well, and especially if authenticity is a value for you, right? And all of a sudden you find yourself but this is the thing, right? Unfortunately, whether it's romantic or friendship, and we all know people like this, authenticity is one of the most effervescent light sources. And the aura, it's so bright that to narcissists, to sociopaths, to selfish assholes, to manipulators, they will actively seek out the most authentic person they can find because it's the brightest light source. So when your authenticity starts disappearing, right, which is the symptoms is like the self-censoring, the wanting to hide, wanting to kind of go under a rock, that's when you know something is wrong, because that person has literally used you as their supply. They've sucked the light dry from your bones. And I remember just being in the shower, on the shower floor under the water, thinking if I could hide underneath the toilet bowl, I would hide underneath the toilet bowl. Like, that feeling of going from so big to so small is really that. It's when authenticity is under attack from someone who wanted to capitalize off of your brightness. It becomes abundantly clear. Just again, like, we all know people like this who either are attracted to very authentic people, emotional people, so they can get something from it, or they're it's like Machiavellian. Like, they're literally seeking out somebody who's bright to abuse them, to take from them. And as people who are, it's already hard getting up in the morning and being brave enough to be vulnerable, to choose yourself, to choose love, to choose your tenderness. It's already difficult. Like, don't make it harder for yourself by surrounding yourself with people who are going to do the worst with your best. And I'll shut up after this. The company you keep can often be a form of self sabotage, because if you're around someone who keeps you small, then that keeps you from going big. So we'll actually keep bad people in our lives or dysfunctional relationships in our lives in order to keep us responsible and accountable for making that next big leap. So when you have children and stuff, you can't afford to do that, because then you're setting an example to your children that this is okay or that is okay. So in my case, it was like, my daughter came into the bedroom one day. It was like, Mom, they had never seen me scream ever, 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 ever in 10 years. And she came into the room to say, like, I really don't think you should be with this person because I don't recognize you right now. And I was like, okay, that's my sign right now. Or when my friends' kids would come over, there are 4 girls, they would say that whenever he came into the room, I just changed completely. And in the moment, you don't realize these things, but when you become an energetic and emotional traffic controller, you love someone so desperately and you want them to be happy so desperately that life becomes about walking on eggshells. And again, the martyr thing and everything else. But when we're being honest, we know what's right. We know what's wrong. You don't need to be looking out elsewhere for the information or the permission or the validation or the affirmation. Like, when someone's not good for you, it's going to be really fucking clear. That's why when women get out of abusive relationships or friendships, they'll look back and say, if I'm being honest, there were 100 red flags. You know what I mean? Like, it's pretty fucking clear.
yeah.
Oh, there was so much that was beautiful there. And I was just writing things down. And one of them was, you made me think about this idea that potential is nothing. That we,
Mm.
especially because when you're a sensitive, empathetic woman with the ability to trust yourself and your intuition, we're going to see potential in anyone.
Yeah.
We're gonna be able to say, wow, we can really see the light that's in you, even if it's so buried that nobody else can see it. And then if I'm being totally honest, I have been in my lifetimes where I'm like, I'm special because I see your light and no one else
Uh-huh.
can. And then I'm in
Well,
this relationship that's horrible because I'm like giving up everything to help you get your light out because I can see it. And it's so please, everyone, you're allowed to stop right now. You're allowed to not do
yeah.
that heavy lifting and pushing. And
But it's just saying, like, what, what makes the best cheerleaders and champions and coaches and mentors and teachers? Like, it's literally recognizing the potential in a person that has it buried under, 4 layers of sludge and rock and grime and self-doubt. So these skills we have to see the potential in people it's not a bad thing, but we should stop fucking wasting it on people that don't deserve it, who will never meet that potential, but are capitalizing on us flirting with that person's potential, because it keeps that person from New York City sounds, from getting it, basically allows them to get away with murder. Potential is something you see in a person and wish for. There's no social proof. There's no outcome there. Like, it's us just basically saying, oh, he could be like this, therefore that's my porn for the moment. I will say again, not to vilify women, because it often turns into us having to make a change or do something better or stop being this. These men, or people, friends as well, we both have plenty of people we know that they fake their whole fucking personality to get close to you. They show you the best of themselves on purpose. They project a very specific picture that they know is going to send a bat signal to your potential radar. So it's not that we're insane or we're naive or we're delusional. It's we're being targeted by people who fake their whole personality until that personality doesn't work anymore. So some also grace to us as we navigate those things.
massively. Kim, I feel like you're about to say something, so I'm going to you.
Oh, I'm just the whole faking who they are until it doesn't work for them is so true. And also, like, seeing potential. I stayed in my first marriage for so long based on knowing his potential. That was such a waste of time.
Especially when we have kids, right? Because we want to believe the best in our kids, and our kids too will disappoint us, right? There's literally no foolproof strategy here. People are going to disappoint us, and it's not our business. We can champion the best of a person, but who they become fundamentally is their prerogative. We can't pour the best of ourselves into things because we're just distracting from being the best we can be, which is actually the best way to lead from example.
And I'm going to say that I wrote down, not a coincidence, because I see little miracles all the time. I wrote, it's okay to disappoint people. So as much as we're going to be disappointed and be prepared for that, be prepared that you will disappoint others. And the weird thing is that was a massive realization for me, because I couldn't believe, but how could I disappoint anyone? And that's the thing you talked about earlier, Angel, was the good girl thing. How can I possibly disappoint anyone? How can you not disappoint someone?
Mm.
And then what happens?
It's not
They're
possible. I
disappointed.
know. Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
It is what it is. A really great practice for the listeners too is, I think, because so many of us are people pleasers and we are empathetic and we have tons of trauma responses that tell us we need to keep everyone happy to reduce conflict, and bear in mind that women are socially driven creatures. Men literally do not have the same brainscape. We are built to bring cohesion to the group via affection, attention, and presence, and something called social grooming. So we are born with the desire to keep everyone happy. This is not a fluke. This is not a pathology. It's how we are designed. The issue is we are operating in a world that will bleed a woman dry, distract her, derail her, etc., because of those pre-existing tendencies. That's the issue. So you have to find the right people who that can complement, and there's a reciprocity and there's a respect and there's a safety, and get really discerning with the people who are looking to you for the wrong reasons to bleed you dry. And when it comes to disappointing, historically, it would cost us something. So if we disappointed somebody, it would cost us our marriage, it would cost us our children, it would cost us the food we eat, it would cost us our job, it would cost us our place in our church. So, of course, epigenetically, we're terrified of disappointing others because we needed to rely on people to stay alive. Again, now we're in a day and age where we don't need that. We have the luxury of disappointing people. And I've said this too, like previously, when it comes to social behavior, is that I actually find it slightly psychotic to believe you can make everyone happy and make everyone like you. That feels sociopathic. You have to be okay with people disliking you. Part of being human and truly embodying the experience is being polarizing. Because if you're lit up and passionate, the byproduct of that means at the other end of the axis is someone's really pissed off that you really like that thing, or you really can, you really care about said thing. So you have to get more. It's not even about being comfortable disappointing people, because yes, but that's just symptomatic of getting really good at being yourself, because everything else falls away when you back yourself and you choose yourself and you give a voice to your vision and a voice to your vulnerabilities and you make no apologies about your experience existing as you. The other stuff just sort of goes, you know what I mean? And the people who are disappointed, who are projecting or whatever, they just really naturally disappear, right? They just become a sort of like I don't want to say that like sound beat, but they just become like, okay, cool, nice to know you. The trash takes itself out. When you're really around people who, as you're about to apologize, they're like, don't do that. Don't apologize. Don't deflect. Take the compliment. Take up more space. Those people are turned on by your capacity to ruffle their feathers and invite them into something bigger. And so it's imperative not just to get good at disappointing people, but to get really good at disgusting people. Because the more people you repulse, the more intense your magnetism is towards the people who have been looking for someone like you their entire life. And now finally your light is bright enough to bring them in.
Being misunderstood was something that was super uncomfortable for me and
Mhm.
took a lot of intentional practice. I was the person that if somebody would leave me a shitty comment on social media, I would respond and try to get them to see my point of view and get into like an
Oh God, so
argument with
guilty of
them.
that.
And it was hard. It's not an easy thing. I'm sure it's hard for everybody, but I think it makes me think have boundaries with yourself to protect yourself from that and to just cultivate this space where you can be authentic. I will often ask myself when I'm creating content or putting something out into the world, like, is this truly authentic to me, or am I saying this because I want to try and get into the brains of somebody else and make them think something of me, or I'm trying to portray myself as something else? Because for a long time I was in that habit of playing mind reader, and it's like, okay, if I do this, they'll think this. And it's like, no, it's
It's
so
sort of,
exhausting.
yeah, sorry to interrupt you, Kim, but sort of like, when you find someone is cute and they're not really interested, and then you make it a game just to prove that you could make them interested in you. Did you ever experience that, guys? Where like sometimes when a hater will hate me, I would make it a game to charm the shit out of them so that they would eventually come to like me, which is the sort of, helping them understand me, defending myself, giving greater clarity, which, spoiler alert, is the hugest waste of time ever. But I found myself almost programmed to prove people wrong, and about whatever their preconceived notion was. And I think there's something freeing about not trying to be magnetic to the people committed to hating you, and instead letting yourself be open to receiving the love from people you will never have to beg. And there is a big, big, big energetic difference there.
Boom.
Ooh,
Exactly.
yes, because I always say this is so cliche to say it, but what you focus on grows. But if you're focusing,
It's
but
true.
it's true. It's true. It sounds corny, but it's so true. So if you're
Oh, it's
focusing,
true.
it's true. So when we're focusing on people like the way the three of us are, how we love what each of us is giving, and we're each of us leaning in, and we are listening with an open heart, and we want more, and we want to see each other win massively. That's what we're
Yeah.
focusing on. So guess what happens? We feel good in our body. We
Yeah.
are able to be more authentic and the thing about, I think it's really great that you brought this up, and I'm sure that this comes up for everybody listening. When somebody makes a comment and you think, what do I do with that comment? How do I have a boundary? And I wanted to add something in there, which is, I think it's okay to respond if you're not attached to an expectation that you're going to teach them something or change them. If you're responding because it's a process for you that feels good and you want to go through the process of, I'm feeling like responding and this is for me, do it. I think that the part that gets yucky and can hurt us is when we are attached to changing them or to showing something to everybody else. And then what are we focusing on? So I just think it's beautiful to have natural consequences. And the natural consequence of someone leaving a shitty response or comment is that others are going to see that. They're going to feel what they feel about doing that. And that's their energy. So why are we going to be a part of that? I'm not
I love
interested.
what you said about natural consequences. I do agree. I just will say, for the sake of this, is that once your profile starts getting bigger, or you start taking up a lot more space, particularly with like advocacy work in my case, or activism or whatnot, or if you're a sexual being, or you're not repressed, or you're bold, like, people are going to have outrageous opinions and think that they are owed that. And that changes the dynamic of natural consequence, and et cetera, because the humanity's stripped from it. And all of a sudden you're a toy, you're a pawn, you're objectified, people are feel like people feel like they're owed that experience or that explanation. And so this is why, we see so much cancel culture, woke culture, the bullying online. It's so bad, it's become a part of the culture. Like, people know now that once you go viral, once you do this, once you do that, you are opening yourself up to the masses. And 85% of those masses are horrible human beings who get off being horrible, because the psychology of going viral means that causing conflict or tension is the cheapest and easiest way to go viral. Being mean is the quickest way to create traction. So you actually, when you get to that point, you have to not only be neutral, but completely detached. And I don't know anyone who's been able to successfully do that. Most of the celebrities or people you speak to will say that they don't even have a phone. They don't have socials. They don't Google their own name. There's somebody else managing everything for them, because it is not easy. It's crazy to believe that you can be immune to what other people say, because to get there, you would have to become almost like alexithemic. Like, you would have to be so not phased by loneliness and rejection, et cetera, and that would turn into a pathology. Does that make sense? Like, if you got to that point where you were not impacted by rejection and insensitivities, I'm concerned for you. So I
Yeah,
think that
me
there's
too. Yeah.
so I always tell people, like, if you can't manage the conflict and the haters in a group of 10, stop trying to hire me to help you get to a following of 1 million, because you will not be able to handle what comes through your inbox and what comes through your comments and what people will say about you. I think the hardest thing for me personally, not to bring it back to me again, is that when people say things that aren't true, that's what fucks with me. So when they make things up, or it's a bold-faced lie, the same part of me that's such an advocate and activist for all these other groups that I support, or in animal welfare, or in human rights and childbirth, that girl is still there. The one championing and defending other people is still there. So to me, the idea of abandoning myself when I should be advocating for myself as fiercely feels wrong, but it's also an energy suck. And Kim will know this. Like, it's just not even worth it. If it was effective, I'd put in the effort. Now I just block and delete, Because
Right.
before, I used to leave them there for the natural consequence. I used to just let them look like an asshole. But actually, now it seeds more. So when you leave a negative comment, people start liking it, start interacting with it. It goes viral for the wrong reasons. So you have to be super, super, super careful what you're opening up yourself to on the internet. Because from my perspective, it's not worth it. That's why I don't teach people how to create viral content, because the amount of women I've had experience a true mental breakdown based on the attention they've gotten for a post, it's not worth it for me. Hopefully that's translating.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's happened to me actually. When I first started, I showed you some of the posts when I was
Mm-hmm.
talking about like cheating men and stuff like that and toxic relationships. I had a couple of reels go viral and got really nasty comments on them, and it
Mm-hmm.
literally almost made me stop. I like
Mm-hmm.
took time off. It was just like destabilizing.
Yes, destabilizing is the word. Yep.
And looking back, I was like, I wish I never engaged and responded to those comments, but I had no clue what I was doing, and I was still very uncomfortable with being misunderstood. So I like got into this confrontation with these men, and like you said, yes, when a comment like that is there, it's a permission
Mm-hmm.
slip for other assholes
Mm-hmm.
to join the
Mm-hmm.
conversation, right?
Something up?
Pardon?
Please.
Can I offer something up to that?
Yeah.
An affirmation I like to go by now is, if someone is saying something or speculating or whatever, it's, for me, again, this is just my experience with myself, it's what a joy it is to be misunderstood. What a pleasure it is to be enigmatic.
Mm,
Because the joy in being misunderstood for me now is something I've had to work on a long time. And that is not just let people misunderstand me in a way that's like, ah, let the fuckers misunderstand me. It's what a joy it is to be misunderstood. And then when people do understand me, it's, what a privilege it is to be understood.
mm.
Because
Writing this
now
down.
I don't expect being understood to be a birthright. Being understood is a privilege. And I experienced that in true intimacy and true safe relationships. So now I allow myself the kind of like the joy of what a joy it is to be misunderstood, because what a pleasure it is to be understood when I am, you
Right.
know?
Oh,
And that
that's
really, really,
beautiful.
really does help change the dynamic for me, because as a like really rejection dysmorphic, sensitive human being, dealing with the same things you all are, and many of the listeners will be experiencing, it really does make a difference in stabilizing myself in a situation where it's like all I want to do is or defend or whatever the case might be.
Yeah. And I love that you said block and delete, and that's what you do now. So I'm going to just go back to saying everyone has the permission to block and delete. There's no reason you
Hell
have to
yes.
engage. Just know that we do it. And I also want to bring up that I did have an experience I want to share really quick about a video that went
Mhm.
viral I was yet to find one negative comment. It was over 10 million views. It happened to be my daughter put it out, which has made me so happy. My daughter wanted me to meet her girlfriend for the first time. And because there had been lockdowns during the whole thing with 2020, they had been in a relationship over a year and a half without me getting to meet her in person. And we
Mhm.
finally got to meet in person. And so my daughter created this video of just showing me getting ready to meet her girlfriend.
Mhm.
We never brought up, didn't say the word LGBTQ friendly, didn't say lesbian, didn't say anything. It was literally, I'm about to meet someone that means a lot to my daughter. And
Mhm.
I want to make sure that I make a good impression. And it was funny. And it was there were moments because I had a necklace I wanted to wear that was big. And I thought I might impale her if I hugged her with this necklace, and it might not be comfortable. And so do I wear the necklace? Let's do a practice hug. And my daughter and I did this practice hug. And I'm telling you, it was the only time I've ever had a video go viral, and it was the most beautiful experience. So that too can exist.
It does. So hashtag hope core. Usually when you're looking at hope core content, there isn't really negative comments, because people are going to hope core as a form of medicine. If there is anything for some, for example, though, if you were a person of color, it would probably be a different experience. If you were a person in a marginalized or disenfranchised group, or you look different, you might not experience the privilege of not being hated on a piece of hope core content. unfortunately, it is a completely different landscape depending on what you look like, what you say. And now, for the most part, there are sort of signals you can put on TikTok and Instagram and whatnot, where if somebody's leaving a negative comment, it's instantly blocked or instantly
Mm.
removed. So they do have good settings. I just think that if you're showing up, like you said, Yanthe, like in the world with love and integrity and kindness and tenderness, you'll be surprised at how well received it is. And it's true. I've been shown this over and over and over again. You know,
Mm.
knock on wood, since I've been back, I really have not experienced any hate. I know, though, that it exists, and I know that it is percolating, and I know that the more noise you make, so for example, if you would have had 10 viral videos of the same thing, that's when it starts. It's this is fake, it's made up, this is staged, blah, 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 blah. So there's no set rule, and it shouldn't determine or dictate what you put out into the world. For me, it's just like, do it anyway. You're going to be hated. And I did want to say something about the block delete. Blocking and deleting, or not doing it because you want to save face or be the good girl and everyone has an opinion, blah, 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 is like believing that every woman who's catcalled owes the man who catcalls her a smile. You don't owe anybody an explanation for shit. You don't owe anybody attention. You're the designer of your own destiny. You're the one who gets to choose what furniture you have in your house. Block, delete, end of story. And if something doesn't feel good, don't do it. And if you put out a piece of content that means a lot to you and you want to stay up to curate that and make sure nothing bad gets posted, good. Do the damn thing. Like, you get to decide how that feels.
And I'm going to go back to saying, and have people like this around you.
Yeah.
Because the other thing that I've noticed that's really helpful, and I wonder if either of you have done this, is when you've had someone come at you with hate and you haven't blocked and deleted it, and you've had others come to your aid to surround you in protection and say
Oh,
things to that
yeah.
person, and you haven't had to engage.
Yeah.
That can also be
That's one of
really
my highest values, ride or die. I totally agree with it. Like, if somebody posted something on Kim's page, like, and I saw that, I
oh,
would go in and murder. To
me too.
me, right? And now I'll do the same to you. Like, I find it is so offensive when people don't rally for their friends, and that's actually when Kim and I spoke about it, that triggered me more than actually the hate. Because the idea that people who know me and love me could see something and not come to my rescue bends my mind. I'm
Mhm.
just like, it's like if my child posted something online and I went in to make sure that there was not. It's the same. It's a love language for me. So
Right.
I absolutely like. I can't understand how you wouldn't. I don't know. That's just me. I just find it so ugly. If you have friends that don't come to your rescue when shit hits the fan, they're not your friends. Spoiler alert.
Amen.
We have each other's backs.
Yes, exactly. And you need that on the internet. You absolutely do need that. I think it's so cute when I see people's parents or their friends or whatever saying, "Hey, this is a real person and they have a real life and they have a real personality and they're actually really kind and this is not okay." And a lot of people will chime in and often there's opportunities for breakthroughs and like I'm sorry and whatnot. But I do think that for the most part, what you said previously about being okay disappointing people, like whether I'm not meeting their projection or I am, it makes no difference. Like I'm disappointing somebody, so long as I'm being true to me, let them make up whatever stories make sense in their realities. Yeah, there's so much that I could say on that, especially over the last few years. You know what? You guys even made a comment about feeling like a failure and changing your mind. And I used to value follow through so much, but the way that I explained follow through was just avoiding failure, feelings of failure. Now it's following through on something after I've procrastinated, after I've sabotaged, after I've been scared shitless, after I've told myself I can't do it because I care about the person or I care about the project. That means so much more to me than following through on a deadline because I have to, because I'm afraid of the consequences or whatever the case might be, because I have forced myself to follow through on many things that were really bad for me and really not good for me, and many people who are not good for me. And I think that's where the being okay disappointing people is a superpower. because until we're okay with disappointing others and disappointing ourselves, we'll continue to harm ourselves and continue to harm others. It's just such a big dance of energetics. This is what, there's no answers. There's no perfect way to get there. The whole point of this game is these connections, these conversations, the ruminating, the contemplating, the observing. It's the joy of being alive. It's by developing enough awareness and self-concept to play with, oh, why did I do this here? Why did I do that then? Oh, that's so weird. This person made me feel this way. Oh, that person made me feel this way. Like, that's the fun of this. The whole being mid-process is what makes life feel like living. And when we look at what's harmed us and what's confused us and what's overwhelmed us and what's derailed us and what's, all these moving parts, when we look to all of those things as the greatest gifts and the greatest lessons and the greatest teachers, something happens there. And it's what allows us to show up to conversations like this and just lead from the front authentically, which is, hey, I don't have anything figured out, but this is how much fun it's been trying to act like maybe I can get there.
It's so beautiful because you show something, I don't know how to exactly put this into words, but what you show is this unbelievable self-awareness and power with humility at the same time.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very kind.
It's beautiful. And it just makes you so beautiful to be in the presence of, because I know that no matter what we say or what you say, and see, it makes tears in my eyes when I have something that's so true to me come up, is that I'm safe because you take responsibility for who you are, and you're working it out, and you're working it out in real time, which allows us and gives us listening and watching the opportunity to do the same, which is such a gift.
That's so beautiful.
I had this director once years ago who said, don't be afraid to look ugly. And the reason he said it in the context that he said it meant so much more than in the context that he said it. What he was talking about was literally as an actor, on stage, like making sure the lighting is right and my face is held this way. Well, now nobody cares what I'm saying because they're noticing that I'm just trying to look pretty. So I'm no longer in it. But as soon as he said that, it's such a relief. Like, don't be afraid to look ugly. Oh, wait a minute. Then I get to be real.
Yeah.
And that's
Will
what you do so beautifully.
Thank you. Will Arnett said this actually, like recently. He was talking about breaking. I love him so much. Huge crush. I often talk about how badly I want Will Arnett to Conan O'Brien to Eiffel Tower me, but alas, a girl can dream. What I was going to say is that, Will Arnett was talking about, to him, like, everything about like improvisation, everything about like cracking into this character, everything about being the most gregarious, outrageous version of you is you have to be totally okay with looking moronic, with being like feeling. So a lot of actors actually in class will say they're afraid to really get into character because getting into character means losing face, which is ironic because you're going to become an actor, but you're worried about how you look. So you're trying to stay poised, but the whole point is breaking into character. And so he was talking about how like you have to be okay with looking crazy. So I'll expand on the looking ugly to looking crazy, because if you can really own the ugly and the crazy, holy crap, your world gets turned upside down. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm still in that place where it's like, there's a little squirrel who's come to say hello. I just feel like that's that feeling to me, this like true crazy ugly of what if I put out this thing and everyone thinks I'm ugly and crazy? What if? And then I move into the making love to my worst nightmare scenario, which is cool. So then everyone thinks I'm ugly and crazy. And then what? Oh, guess what? I don't die. And if I go down this like series of events, the worst thing that could happen is I'm in a dumpster somewhere fishing out food, and then what? There's no real consequence to being the ugliest, craziest version of yourself in the name of authenticity. And often what you find is that people respond to it And all of a sudden, you've made a career out of being the ugly, crazy person. Just like Conan O'Brien's parents and wanted to tell him, you're insane for doing this, until one day he was 50 and his dad turns to him, who's much older now, and says, well, you made the crazy work for you, son. And that's it. Like, it's just about going to places where your weird gets rewarded, finding communities where your crazy gets clapped for. Like going into spaces where people look at your ugly and say, this is the most fucking beautiful thing I've ever seen. That transforms the landscape of our lives.
I feel like you guys
Wow.
appreciate my crazy.
Yes. I'm like,
Yeah.
crazy please. Thank you.
Yeah.
Crazy please.
Well, we can definitely find a beautiful way to wrap this, because I want to be aware of the time and also leave people wanting more, which is one of my favorite things to do. And I want more. I want so much more that I'm going to force myself to stop here. But I want to say some of the things I wrote down could be forever on t-shirts I wear. Actually, I like hoodies better than t-shirts, but I wrote things down like emotional exhibitionist, wounded out loud, mid-process, go to spaces where your weird is rewarded. I even wrote down love can exist in spirit. And the reason I wrote that one was when you were talking about how you're loving someone so much and you had to shrink and not be yourself to love them. I always feel like, well, if we can't do that in person because it's not working for us and we're not able to without getting hurt, there's nothing that stops us from loving someone in spirit. And I just offer this to anyone listening that exists, and it might sound, I don't care if it sounds weird, because you know what? That's what this is all about. I know what it feels like to love someone in spirit. And I know when I have to do that and when it's not safe to love them in real life, real time.
Yeah.
So I wrote
That
that down
doesn't
too.
sound crazy. I've been practicing that heaps the last few months. Is that I know that it was real for me, and that's all that matters. And I don't need to become a horrible version of myself or repel the love I felt in order to heal. I can hold both at once, meaning I can hold on to the love I felt because I was real, and I can send them and extend them love energetically because that is real and that's who it is I am. And healing doesn't require you to be less loving than it is you are. Surviving does. And if you're going to thrive in healing, you have to hold on to that love. You have to believe it was real, and you just have to channel it into something else.
Beautiful.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Genuinely,
Thank
what
you
a
for
beautiful
being here.
conversation. My pleasure. I love you. If anyone wants to find me, they can head on to Instagram at angelrat69. I know, ridiculous, but there's a method to my madness there. And anything that I do over the next few months will be linked, because just like Kim, I'm in the middle of 3 different rebrands. I am always talking shit and pouring my heart out and just speaking from where it's born from within me. That's how I am in service. So if people want to come and along for the ride, they're more than welcome to. But I'm sure that you guys will come on my podcast, and I'll be back, and we'll continue the meat and potatoes of this.
Yeah, go follow her. You will not be disappointed. And also remember to subscribe to this podcast, turn on notifications so you don't miss anything.
Yes.
And we
And leave a
will be
review. Leave a
dropping
5-star review on any of your podcast listening channels. If you are thinking about leaving a 4-star, 1-star, don't do it. Leave a 5-star, leave a positive comment. These are the only things that are allowed, and it will allow podcasts like this to get seen by more people. So do not forget to engage and show up for your friends and your favorite creators.
Yeah.
Thank
Be around
you.
people like this who have your back. This was a beautiful example of
Exactly.
it. Authenticity and true friendship. Love you both
Yeah.
so
Oh, I
much.
love you guys.
Love you both. Clapping for your weird and your ugly, and we will speak soon.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Bye.
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 Thanks for joining us on Unapologetic Uplift. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share the love and tell a friend about us, and give us a review.
Please don't miss a thing. Subscribe to this podcast and explore our sponsors, Objects with Purpose Eco Luxury Candles and Divine Activation membership.
Objects with Purpose is more than an eco-luxury candle brand. They are time travel devices in the form of a candle. Light the 3 wicks representing past, present and future with the validation that you are exactly where you need to be. And if you're ready to raise your level of consciousness and step into your unapologetic, unfiltered, and unbothered era, join the Divine Activation membership at cuttingties.coach/queen. With 3 tiers to choose from, you'll find the perfect fit to support your transformation.
Thank you for your listening and love. We'll see you next Wednesday on Unapologetic Uplift.
Welcome to the Divine Activation membership, a movement for women that are ready to raise their consciousness and step into their unapologetic, unfiltered, and unbothered era.
With your heart, live authentically, and become the magnet for all of your soul's desire.
Grow, connect with your heart and body, release unhealthy and unhelpful thought patterns, heal old wounds, create new neural pathways, and reprogram your subconscious with high-value beliefs so you can manifest the life you're meant for.
Ready to take a break from what's holding you back? Visit cuttingties.coach and join the Divine Activation membership today. Hey, unapologetic souls. I'm Ianthe Mauro, founder of Objects with Purpose, candles that touch the soul and the body. I've released a limited edition 3-wick candle collection in 3 fragrances inspired by a time in history. The Time Travel Collection, because scent evokes memory and lighting a candle can truly transport you to your highest self. Anytime.
Ianthe's candles are truly special, clean, safe, even for the body, as a solid perfume or massage oil, and smell amazing. But what truly fills her heart is empowering others to be seen in their best light.
In 2020, when the 200 stores that sold my candles across the country closed their doors, I knew it was time to give back. I started guiding others to launch their own candle companies and design candles and fragrances for other brands as a way to share light in a dark time.
So why settle for just any conventional candle? Light the 3 wicks in each Objects with Purpose candle. You're supporting handmade in California, small batch, artisanal, eco-luxury, and treating yourself to a memory-evoking evolution. Visit ianthemauro.com to discover your next favorite candle. Let the olfactory experience inspire cherished memories.